How does a self-publisher from East Texas, with no intention to profit off a book she just made for shits and giggles, spiral into a 15-time New York Times bestseller? More importantly though, how did one woman garner so much hate for her books, when there are thousands of other books out there that are way more controversial and or graphic? It begs the question, is the criticism and the outrage about her book's content actually problematic, that an abundance of people have to feel the need to speak out about it? Or is it the result of too broad, poorly targeted marketing that gets her work in front of many disappointed readers that take to social media to express this disappointment that inadvertently creates a domino effect of anti-Colleen Hooverism? Hey, what's up? Welcome, one and all, new and returning. I've been hearing about Colleen Hoover drama ever since my 2023 BookTok hyperfixation, but only now am I starting to read Colleen Hoover for the first time with Verity. It's giving me good reason to not only skim the surface of the online hate she gets for her best-selling novellas, and really take a peek behind the curtain to see where the outrage for her publications come from, and if it really is truly warranted or not. Now, before I start this, I just want to make it clear, I'm coming at this from a completely unbiased perspective, and that this video is not meant to praise or critique Colleen Hoover, since I'm not that familiar with her work other than the first 3 to 4 chapters of Verity that I've read so far. But I've gotten pretty immersed in the controversies that have followed her throughout the years, and I feel like I've gathered enough intel to come to my own conclusions about whether or not this is a byproduct of truly displaced reading material or hive mind bandwagon jumping hate train. So if you got time to kill, have a stay on this video, get comfortable, get into whatever mindset you need to get into to stay comfortable. To stay tuned, and let's dive into Colleen Hoover. Mayhem or marketing? So let's start at the very beginning, because you can't start nowhere else. As I mentioned in the first few seconds of this video, Colleen Hoover started her authorship journey as an independent publisher with no intentions of getting her books picked up by major publishers, nonetheless have her books read by a shit ton of people, and attain worldwide success with it.
Hoover dominates the New York Times bestsellers list, once claiming 8 of the top 10 paperback spots simultaneously. She sold more than 16 million books last year alone, even outselling the Bible.
She was just your average, run-of-the-mill American woman who utilized her hobby of writing as a creative outlet to cope with the stressful and emotionally taxing nature that was her job as a social worker. Her 2011 debut novel, Slam, a young adult romance about a girl named Lakin who gets involved in a forbidden, frowned-upon love affair with her slightly older neighbor Will, a slam poet. In an effort to make the work accessible to her grandmother, Colleen uploaded the book's manuscript onto Amazon KDP, and up for sale it went in the book section of the world's most popular e-commerce website. And about a year later, she releases a sequel to Slammed, Point of No Return. And within that same year, this Texas-based social worker slash hobbyist writer is reaching audiences that go way beyond just her grandmother. Sales of Slammed and Point of No Return started to skyrocket, with Slammed selling over 179,000 copies, and Point of No Return selling 122,000 copies. And at this point, she's getting mentions on social media from complete strangers talking about how much they enjoyed reading the Lakin and Will duology. And eventually, both books earned themselves a spot on the New York Times bestseller list. The viral praise and acclaim for Colleen's first 2 books catches the attention of Atria Publishing Group, a division of the big dog publication house Simon & Schuster. Atria attains the rights to the novels after Colleen signs a 2-book deal with them, and the books get a re-release with Atria Publishing Group as the book's official publisher with 2 new cover designs. Now, with the massive basic overnight success of 2 novellas, I've been pronouncing novella right? Novella, whatever. Of 2 novellas she wrote without the intention of getting discovered. She garnered the loyalty of an intensely devoted online fan base that called themselves the Cohorts. And I think the success that she's had with her books mostly comes down to her own social media game, and that she mostly writes romances, which is the highest selling book genre of all time, which, as history has shown us, Colleen's literary accomplishments and fame have been a double-edged sword. Colleen Hoover did didn't really start getting into hot water with the public until the reign of BookTok. If you're involved in BookTok at all or stumbled across it at some point, you know how prominent conversations about Colleen Hoover's books are on there. Some are praise, some are slander. In the present day, she's commonly referred to as the Queen of BookTok. There are a few reasons why I think her books are so popular, and why social media just can't seem to stop talking about them. For one, their sad and harsh realism regarding traumatic events and experiences of the characters in her books. Abuse, toxic relationships, infidelity, stuff that most, if not really all people, especially women, have been subject to or at least affected by at some point in their lives. Another thing that I think makes her books really popular is that she doesn't stick to just one genre. She's dipped her toes in pretty much every genre of fiction. Now, of course, she's mainly noted for being an author of young adult romance, but she's also penned thrillers like Verity and her newest release, Woman Down. And this experimentation with different genres widens her net access to a larger range of book lovers than authors that just usually stick to one genre. But she also gets a bunch of criticism for her writing style. Some have found Colleen Hoover's storytelling to be too basic, predictable, and too, as the internet calls it, Wattpad, which implies that a piece of writing consists of stereotypical character tropes and cliche melodramatic storylines, basically the key ingredients to young adult romances. And of course, we can't forget about the most buzzed about aspects of the original works of Colleen Hoover. Original works of Colleen Hoover, and what got her so big on BookTok. One of the reasons her books gets labeled as controversial is due to the depiction of relationship dynamics that are described by readers as abusive, toxic, particularly the ones in her so-called romance novels. Most notably, the protagonist in It Ends With Us, Lily and Ryle, two adults who come together in a relationship who have both experienced abuse in childhood, with the book depicting the two most common outcomes of abused children in adulthood: the abused child becoming an abuser themselves versus the abused child getting into relationships with abusers. Many have accused her of romanticizing toxic or abusive relationship dynamics amongst the protagonists in her books, portraying the perpetrating character, most often the man, in an unearned sympathetic light, with the woman in the dynamic usually being very submissive and timid, which leads audiences to believe that it not only glamorizes and normalizes abuse, but sends out the harmful message to young, inexperienced, love-starved readers, especially young women, that chaotic relationships filled with passion and heat equates to a relationship being the real deal, and that staying in an unhealthy dynamic equates to overcoming hardships and challenges two people often face when building a life together. And this next controversy surrounding her personal life, we're giving her critics a field day to further question her morality, an integrity that they already feel is lacking, solely based on fiction authored by her. In 2022, a 16-year-old girl came forward on Twitter stating that Colleen Hoover's then 21-year-old son Levi had sent her a sexually explicit, inappropriate DM. The young girl claimed she reached out to Colleen, detailing the situation, but instead was met with the block button.
So February 12, 2022, in a X/Twitter thread about Colleen Hoover hate, whatever, I don't even know, a girl posted this. This tweet has since been deleted and this account no longer exists. She followed up with this tweet, and then she shared a screenshot of the DM she sent Colleen Hoover as proof. This is just a better look at that same screenshot. If she shared anything more than this, I can't find it.
Colleen, however, had this to say in an official statement that she posted on her private cohort's Facebook group in regards to the situation and telling her side of the story. So as you can see, both Colleen and the girl had two different versions of the story, and everything about this incident is alleged. But naturally, because she has a lot of naysayers online who criticize her for normalizing abuse, it kind of supported their already negative stance on her as someone who has done these horrible things and is worthy of cancellation. And of course, many anti-Blake Lively folks were not happy to see Colleen speak up in support of Blake Lively when she came forward with sexual harassment allegations against Justin Kristen Baldoni that took place on the set of the It Ends With Us film adaptation, and perceived her being friendly with Blake Lively in general as being on the side of the enemy. And people have often raised eyebrows at the way she and or her publishers, I'm not sure who makes the final decisions on those, choose to market and promote these books. Like, take the coloring book debacle, for example. In January 2023, Colleen and Atria Books had planned to release a coloring book inspired by It Ends With Us. And according to the publisher, the side quest promotion was an attempt to be uplifting, empowering, mirroring Lily Bloom's story. But many of Colleen's readers didn't see it that way and called the project tone deaf and accused her of making light out of the serious issue that domestic violence is. Colleen took the hint from her audience and shut down the release almost immediately after the backlash ensued, and issued a public apology to her fans with an Instagram story. Now, I'm gonna get so many confused looks and girl uh-uhs with what I'm about to say now. And it's that Colleen Hoover is the Taylor Swift of literature. Calm down, Swifties and cohorts. Hear me out before you come for my neck, so chill. The cohorts and Swifties are alike in so many ways, in the sense that they both have such devoted online fan bases that are ride or die, obsessively consumes whatever they put out, and hypes them up with such a passion. Like, both cohorts and Swifties are so polarizing. You either love them or you hate them. There's no in between. And it's because they both write about life experiences that most people, particularly women, have firsthand experience with. And they both write about them in such a way that is so raw and has the potential to trigger in either a positive or negative way, or maybe even both if we're being quite honest up in this shit. Which leads me into my next talking point about the virality of BookTok and how it's been the main driver of her longevity, and how without it, she would probably still be your average young adult romance writer with a very niche following. As with any social media platform, but especially TikTok, it's the extremist, takes thoughts and opinions that get the most visibility. And with the content of many of Colleen Hoover's books that touch on really heavy subjects, there's endless room for nuance as well as personal projection. Some see her work as an opportunity to rewrite their own empowering narrative that is not self-blaming or self-defeating for what terrible things happen to them, by immersing themselves into the characters' stories, giving them the inspiration they need to move forward with a newfound sense of hope and redemption they have allowed themselves to have.
People that are believing she romanticizes abuse, and I've read a handful of her books. I don't know how many, and I did go see the movie, and as somebody who's been in an abusive relationship, I would have to disagree with that statement. So when I read this book many years after this relationship, it really helped me personally. And that aside, her as a person aside, it breaks my heart thinking about the fact that for some reason she may have done something wrong that would convince people to stop reading her books. Because if I never picked up Verity a couple years ago when I was deep in postpartum, like, I wouldn't be into reading. I would have never read the ACOTAR series, and I would have never felt the way I do now about books and hobbies and like just being a person outside of my husband and my children. And actually, you know, I had just got out of the Army at the time, and I did not know who I was at all. And her books were my gateway drug into books in general. And I know that's the case for a lot of other people.
And for others, the story or characters can hit too close to home and instead view the material as problematic or insensitive. So when it comes to any type of media that involves emotionally heavy subjects like domestic violence or abuse, there's gonna be all shades of reactions to said media. But it's the negative reactions to a book, movie, show, whatever, that gets plastered on the For You pages and creates cancellation hive minds that Colleen Hoover's books throughout the past few years have been subject to.
Well, let's talk about Colleen Hoover. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I have read pretty much every single Colleen Hoover book except Without Merit, Layla, and the Hopeless series. And I actually like her. And that is where I'm going to probably get hate. I feel like on BookTok, I do not see anything positive about Colleen Hoover, and it honestly makes me so sad. But I also understand where people are coming from, but people seem to not understand the type of writer that Colleen Hoover is, and that's where their judgment comes in. Colleen Hoover is a young adult writer who writes books mainly, it doesn't have to be, but I feel as though it's books for new readers who want to get into reading, or readers that want to read a book in one sitting, and she does a phenomenal job at doing just that. Don't get me wrong, there are much better authors out there, but I don't see anything wrong with Colleen Hoover because the type of author she is, she portrays it so well in all of her books. The reason people dislike her so much is because, in my opinion, she has no diversity. All of her books are kind of the same. All of her boys are kind of the same. Although each boy in her book has like a different history, it's still the type of book you read where you're like, wow, I'm never gonna find that type of romance. Like, kind of just an unrealistic romance. But that's why I love her. Literally.
So I just wanted to come on here and address the Colleen Hoover of it all because, listen, I love Colleen Hoover books. Are they the best written books? No. Are they literary masterpieces? No. Do I still have a fun time reading them? Yes. They are very easy, very beginner friendly. I really enjoyed almost every single one that I read. I do not think that she romanticizes abuse. If you think that, you're welcome to that opinion. You're welcome to hate her. I don't really care if you do or not. But you don't need to comment on my video telling me how much you hate her. You don't need to tell me, well, do you know what she did? Do you know what? I'm very aware. I'm not an idiot. I just don't, I don't care. And if you want to hate me for not caring, that's fine too. Just see yourself out. But that's where we're at here.
Unpopular opinion, I still like Colleen Hoover books. Is Colleen Hoover my go-to favorite author? Not so much. But do I still absolutely appreciate her writing? Yeah, I'm gonna be the first one to say it. And Colleen Hoover will just always hold a special place in my heart because her books are what got me back into reading. Her simple little books are what made me fall back in love with reading. I feel like what ends up happening is that people start reading Colleen Hoover books, like that's where you start, and then you venture off into other categories and other writers and a lot of other darker topics more often than not. And then you go back and try to compare apples and oranges. You try to compare the fucking dark, twisted book that you're reading now to It Ends With Us. And then you wonder why there's no fucking comparison there.
But on the other side of the coin, that also works in her favor, because the more conversations there are going around about her in the BookTok verse, the more curiosity people get about her as an author. That will lead to a big boost in book sales, the circle of social media life. So this begs the question, well, at least I think it does. Is Colleen Hoover herself and the raw emotionality of her book's material to blame for the drama that always seems to be lagging behind her? Or is it a classic cocktail mix of misleading marketing and BookTok brain rot? And the Chronically Online aren't gonna like my answer. The strong reactions people have to Colleen Hoover's books is really just an internet-born fad that originated from false advertising and people who just believe everything they see online and just want to jump on the latest Colleen Hoover cancellation trend. I do think that with her books being promoted as romances and not dark romances or women's fiction is very misleading to those who go into her books expecting a happily ever after, when most of her stories are meant to illustrate real life relationship dynamics. And the honest choices people make, even if it's not for their own benefit, are healthy in the long term. And Colleen Hoover is not everybody's cup of tea, and that's a-okay. But I think because she's established this online presence as a romance writer, she probably often gets put in touch with the wrong, curious potential readers and wind up feeling disappointed and take to BookTok to call her problematic, accuses her of promoting abuse or romanticizing toxicity. But honestly, Colleen Hoover, most, if not all writers, seems to write what she knows. And with her having been a social worker, I think she's taken a lot of inspiration from the dynamics she's experienced or been witness to in that work environment. and has crafted them into fictional stories, born from her own imagination. I highly doubt Colleen Hoover goes into her study every single day and thinks about how she wants to re-traumatize people through her work, like her haters give the impression of. I would presume she's just a New York Times best-selling author, trying to write books her most loyal audiences enjoy, and what sells her the millions. Don't really think it goes deeper than that, but I think she probably could benefit from better representation from her marketing team, or publisher, or whoever is responsible for giving off a book's first impression for curious readers trying to add something to their to-be-read list, so that romance readers looking for the fairy tale are warned that they're not going to get that with a Colleen Hoover book. So in conclusion, I just like to reiterate that this video is not shaming or defending Colleen Hoover in any way. I just think it's important that when there is a public figure who hasn't done anything visibly wrong or has been intentionally malicious, is getting hate, that you do your research on it and come to your own conclusions from it. In a digital universe that feeds itself on popular opinion and passing trends. And this is just simply what I concluded on Colleen Hoover, in deciphering whether or not the hate seemed valid or something sensationalized and blown out of proportion. And it's the latter. But for now, it's time to say good day, good night, good whatever time of day you're watching. And if you vibed with my commentary or just my energy in general, I also implore you to join this channel's emotional support coven. That's just my subscribers, but I'm just too extra to call them that. It's not like one of those fucking memberships where you gotta pay to join or cast some dark magic spell to get initiated. You just have to find that subscribe button right beneath this video and just tap it with your finger like this. And if you want to be the loyalist witch of them all, then turn on all the notifications. So that way you have a better chance of claiming first when a new video drops every 2 weeks. Stay cool, stay fresh, and I'll see you next time.